Ethan's revenge. I got the divorce papers by email while I was still in the desert. 13 years of marriage ended in a PDF attachment. The subject line? Let's be adults about this. My name is Nathan Briggs, 42 years old, Staff Sergeant with the 82nd Airborne Division. I'd been in Kandahar for 4 months when Becky decided she was done waiting. The message was 3 sentences long. She'd already filed. She'd already emptied our joint account. She'd already moved her new boyfriend, Jeremy, into our house in Spokane. I read the email twice, closed the laptop, took a shower in the communal stall, got dressed for my shift, said nothing to anyone. That night, back in my bunk, I replied with one word. Understood. Wilson, my bunkmate, didn't look up from his book. You good, man? Just some stuff back home. He nodded. That was the end of it. Military guys know when to leave things alone. The truth? I wasn't surprised. 6 months before deployment, I'd noticed changes. New clothes, new gym habit, but no sweat. Phone glued to her hand, locked with a new password. Started working late at the dental office. Stopped asking about my day. I didn't yell, didn't snoop. That's not who I am. But I'm not blind. So I started taking quiet precautions. Small moves. I opened a second bank account. Moved half my pay there, just enough not to be noticed. Stored key documents in a private storage unit across town. Birth certificate, house deed, military benefits paperwork, my grandfather's watch, my mother's silver. The VA loan was in my name. The house deed too. At first, I'd added her later. Because that's what husbands do. They share. I was the kind of man who protected what mattered. But Becky, she stopped looking at me like I mattered. The night before I deployed, she hugged me at the airport. Said, stay safe, okay? Her eyes were dry, like she was saying goodbye to a coworker. Not a husband heading into war. I should have known then. But I still hoped I was wrong. I wasn't. 2 weeks after that email, I was eating in the mess hall. My phone buzzed. Bank notification. Withdrawal. $8,500. I froze. Opened the app. Joint account balance. $212. 37. Savings. $0. 00. $47,000. Gone. That night, I called the bank. They told me she'd been moving money for weeks. Small transfers. Then bigger. The day after I deployed, the big one started. I stood in the hallway outside the phone center, surrounded by guys laughing with wives and kids. Felt like a ghost. Wilson found me. Heard from Alvarez, you look like hell at dinner. What's up? I trusted Wilson. He'd pulled me out of a tight spot in Kandahar once. My wife cleaned out the accounts, I said. Moved her boyfriend into my house. Sent divorce papers last week. No pity. No cliches. Just, what's your plan? Not sure yet. He nodded. Let me know if you need anything. That night, I couldn't sleep. Logged into our home security system. Becky must have forgotten I had access. There he was. Jeremy, wearing my Seahawks sweatshirt. Walking my dog. Drinking from my mug in the kitchen I remodeled. With Becky, laughing like she'd never known me. Something shifted in me. Not rage. Something colder. I closed the laptop. Opened a notebook. Wrote down 5 words. Call James, legal. Discreet only. Check pension accounts. Review deed. VA clause. Track withdrawals. Match timing. Patience. Precision. No contact. I wasn't going to fight her. I was going to dismantle the lie she'd built, one documented step at a time. Quietly. 2 weeks after that message in the desert, I was back on American soil. I didn't tell Becky I was coming home. Didn't text. Didn't call. Checked into a motel under a different name. Downtown Spokane. 10 miles from our house. Paid in cash. The room was small, window stuck half open. Didn't matter. I wasn't there to sleep. The next morning, I met James, my old army buddy, at a diner off the highway. He slid into the booth like he'd been waiting years for this conversation. You look like hell, he said. Feel like it too. He didn't ask about Kandahar. Didn't ask about Becky. Just handed me a manila folder. Everything we discussed was inside. The deed. Loan documents. Bank statements. Court dates. Then something else. A refinance application. With my name on it. Sort of. The signature looked like mine, but it wasn't. Wrong middle initial. Stroke pattern off. She forged it. I asked. James didn't answer. Just tapped the page. Filed 3 months ago. She'd used the house equity to pull out $30,000. Jeremy was listed as co-applicant. I stared at the paper. The VA loan's in my name only. Exactly. It wasn't a mistake. It was a strategy. Forge the signature. Cash out the equity. Clear the accounts. Send the email. Then Jeremy shows up with his truck, his coffee, and my dog. It was efficient. Almost military. What are my options? I asked. James leaned back. Plenty. But you need to decide what you want. I told him the truth. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. I wanted her to understand what consequences looked like. We started that day. First stop, the bank. I met with the loan officer who'd processed the refinance. Showed him my military ID, my driver's license, my actual signature. His face turned pale. I'll need to report this, he stammered. I already have, I replied. That night, Becky sent a text. Who have you been talking to at the bank? Jeremy said someone was asking questions. I didn't respond. Next day, I went to the county clerk's office. Filed paperwork contesting the refinance due to fraud. Registered formal notice. No changes to the property without my physical presence. Becky called. I let it go to voicemail. Nathan, we need to talk. The bank called about the house. What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, we can discuss it like adults. Like adults. The same words from her email in Kandahar. Still, I said nothing. James called the following day. They froze the refinance funds. Then a pause. There's more. Jeremy had been pulled over. Driving my truck. Suspended license. Vehicle impounded. Inside. Prescription pads. From Becky's dental office. Not blank. Filled out. I closed my eyes. This was no longer about betrayal. This was bigger. This was criminal. And she was sinking deeper every day. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel panic. I felt ready. Because now the trap she set was starting to close on her. Quietly. The next morning, I met with the bank's fraud investigator. Name tag read Thompson. Tie stained with old coffee. Voice flat from doing this too many times. He said this wasn't the first case. Spouses forging signatures. Pulling out equity when the others deployed. Then vanishing. But mine had a twist. The co-applicant, Jeremy, had a criminal record. 2 DUIs. And a fraud charge from 2019. Thompson leaned closer. There's a pattern here. And it's not just her. I stayed quiet. Let him talk. He opened his screen. Showed me where the funds had gone. Of the $30,000 from the refinance, almost 15 had already been transferred. Not to Becky. Not even to Jeremy. To someone named Daniel Spencer. A name I didn't recognize. Real estate agent, Thompson said. Fast deals. Cash buyers. You know the type. A pit formed in my stomach. Becky wasn't just taking the money. She was planning to sell the house. While I was still legally its sole owner. While I was still alive. I walked out of the bank without a word. Called James. He picked up on the first ring. Daniel Spencer, I said. He was already typing. 10 minutes later, he called back. Spencer specialized in distressed property sales. Fast closings. Quiet paperwork. And he'd worked with Jeremy Ryan before. 3 deals in 2 years. Same pattern. Woman files for divorce. New boyfriend shows up. House gets sold fast. Way below market. I sat down on a park bench, staring out over a frozen pond. This wasn't some midlife affair. This was a playbook. Tell me the rest, I said. James did. Jeremy had a pattern too. He'd gotten involved with multiple women during divorce or deployment. In each case, Spencer sold the house. The proceeds vanished. The women were left with nothing, or worse, with debt. And now it was my turn. Except I wasn't like the others. Because I'd been watching, recording, moving in the dark while they operated in plain sight. I pulled out my phone, opened the security app again. The feed was live. Jeremy in my living room, on my couch, wearing my clothes, talking on the phone with someone I couldn't see. He smiled, then laughed. That was the moment I stopped caring whether Becky was a victim or a co-conspirator. Didn't matter anymore. She'd crossed the line the second she signed my name. Now I had enough. But it still wasn't time to strike. Not yet. This wasn't about a house, or a dog, or a stolen sweatshirt. It was about breaking a system that preyed on people like me. So I made a new list. FBI, White Collar Crimes Division. Military JAG Office, Pension Protection. County Registrar, Deed Lock. Bank Fraud, Full Report. And a final entry. Wait. Wait until they make the next move. Wait until they get comfortable. Wait until they hang themselves. Then pull the cord. Quietly. 3 days passed. I didn't contact her. Didn't respond to her texts. Becky tried calling once. Left a voicemail, her voice shaking. I don't know what you're doing, but Jeremy says you're trying to ruin us. Please just talk to me. I didn't return the call. That's not how this works. James filed the fraud complaint with the county. The refinance was officially under investigation. The bank had frozen the funds still in the account. The house couldn't be sold without my signature now. It wasn't enough, because $15,000 was already missing. Transferred to Daniel Spencer. Disappeared. And Jeremy? He was still walking around in my clothes, drinking my coffee, living in my house. I needed more than just legal moves. I needed leverage. Something that couldn't be dismissed or negotiated. So I went hunting. James and I ran a full background on Spencer. His real estate license was valid, but he had a long history of quiet settlements. Complaints that never reached court. Deals that looked clean on paper, but stank on review. One thing stood out. Every time Spencer closed a sale tied to Jeremy, the buyer was the same LLC. Different names. Same address. James traced it to a mailbox rental facility in Boise. The LLC's listed manager? A woman named Amanda Ryerson, former associate of Jeremy Ryan. Filed bankruptcy twice. Off the grid now. The structure was clear. A laundering loop. Jeremy and Spencer would target a woman, usually with a stable asset, like a home. They'd isolate her, speed up the sale, move the cash, and move on. It was a quiet, repeatable con. Low risk, high payout, minimal noise. Until now. Because I wasn't interested in yelling or confrontation. I was interested in records. I was interested in timelines. I was interested in patterns. So I started compiling. Bank statements, deed transfers, sale records, digital signatures, police reports, and security footage. Because the cameras I'd installed a year earlier, they weren't just for show. They uploaded everything to cloud storage, including the footage from 2 nights ago when Spencer and Jeremy toured my house with a clipboard. I watched as Jeremy pointed at fixtures I'd installed with my own hands. The fireplace I'd built brick by brick during leave. The cabinet doors I'd refinished when Becky said she wanted a modern look. Spencer nodded. Said something about listing it at $470,000. Said he had a buyer ready at $420. I turned up the volume. He'll settle, Spencer said. Military guys always do. Especially when they're overseas. He won't want a scene. Jeremy laughed. He still thinks this is about a divorce. He didn't know I was watching. Didn't know I'd recorded every second. Didn't know I'd forwarded it to the FBI. Agent Patel called the next morning. Asked to meet. They'd been building a case on Spencer and Jeremy for over a year, but lacked first-hand evidence. Until now. Patel asked how involved I believed Becky was. I told her the truth. I'm not sure yet, but I know what she signed, and I know what she ignored. That was enough. The storm was coming. But for now, I just waited. Because silence, real silence, doesn't mean weakness. It means control. And I had it. All of it. The next time I saw my house, it was behind a line of parked cars and a for sale sign staked into my front lawn. Spencer hadn't wasted time. The listing was live. Photos already up. My kitchen. My bedroom. Even the dog bed I'd bought before my last deployment was in one of the shots. Jeremy's truck was in the driveway. Becky's car wasn't. I parked down the street. Didn't get out. Didn't need to. James sat next to me, phone in hand, screen recording the feed from my security system. Inside, Spencer walked a couple through the living room. Jeremy was tagging along, pretending to be the homeowner. Smiling. Confident. They had no idea. I uploaded the footage to the FBI portal. Label. False ownership. Active attempt to sell property under fraud. 10 minutes later, Patel called. They were moving now. This wasn't just financial crime anymore. This was wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. She asked if I wanted to confront Becky. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know, but because there was nothing left to say. That night, Becky texted again. Why won't you just talk to me? We can fix this. I didn't respond. The next morning, she left a voicemail. Said she was scared. Said the bank was threatening legal action. Said Jeremy wasn't answering her calls. The cracks had started. James looked up from his notes. She's realizing she was disposable. I nodded. They always do. Too late. By noon, Spencer's license had been flagged by the state board. Jeremy's record had been pulled by the FBI. I'd done nothing but sit in a motel room and let it all play out. Because they made the moves. They forged the signatures. They moved the money. All I'd done was wait. And record. That evening, Becky showed up at my motel. I watched her from the window as she knocked on the wrong door twice before getting mine right. She looked smaller, tired, panicked. I didn't open it. Let her knock. Let her wonder. Eventually, she slid a note under the door. I didn't know what he was planning. I thought it was just a refinance. I didn't know he'd list the house. I left it there. Didn't touch it. Because whether she knew or didn't, she'd signed. She'd transferred. She'd lied. And now, every choice was echoing back at her. The only thing louder than betrayal is silence. And I was finally fluent in it. The arrest happened on a Wednesday. James and I were parked down the street, same spot we'd used before. We watched from behind tinted windows. Two unmarked SUVs rolled up just after noon. Within minutes, Spencer and Jeremy were in handcuffs. Neighbors came out. Phones pointed. Confusion everywhere. Becky pulled up 15 minutes later. Stepped out of her car slowly, keys in hand like she expected a normal afternoon. Then she saw the FBI agents on the lawn, and the man she led into my house being led away in silence. She didn't run. She didn't scream. Just froze. Like her entire plan, or whatever she believed it was, had collapsed in real time. I didn't approach. Didn't even lower my window. Agent Patel called an hour later. They'd gotten it all. The footage. The signatures. The forged listings. The transfers. It wasn't just enough. It was airtight. Spencer would talk. Jeremy would break under pressure. And Becky, that was still unclear. Patel asked again if I wanted to press charges against my ex-wife. I said I wanted the truth. All of it. Becky sent another text that night. No excuses this time. Just a single sentence. I made a mistake, Nathan. But mistakes have receipts. And mine were stacked, labeled, time-stamped. I met Patel at the field office the next morning. Gave my full statement. Turned over every piece of evidence. Cloud backups, transaction records, time-stamped footage. She said the case had expanded. Jeremy and Spencer had done this in 3 states. Military spouses. VA loans. A quiet, systematic operation. Becky's involvement was under review. Maybe she was conned. Maybe she was complicit. Maybe both. But the question I kept coming back to was this. If she had stopped at betrayal, would I have done anything? If it had just been the divorce, the emails, the boyfriend? Probably not. I would have rebuilt. Started over. But she didn't stop. She signed papers in my name. Tried to sell what wasn't hers. Lied when silence would have been smarter. And now, the system she leaned on was cutting her loose. Patel ended the meeting with a warning. Becky might try to contact me again. To explain. To shift blame. To make it about emotion. But this was never about emotion. It was about structure. Proof. Discipline. The kind of things the Army taught me. The kind of things she never understood. When I left that building, the air felt colder. Not heavy. Clear. Like a mission complete. Not with explosions. Not with shouting. Just pressure. And silence. 2 days after the arrests, Becky showed up at James's office. He called me right after she left. She's scared, he said. Not angry. Scared. She'd asked if turning on Jeremy would keep her out of jail. Said she never meant for any of this to happen. That it all got away from her. But it didn't. It started the moment she opened a secret bank account. The moment she smiled in my kitchen while Jeremy wore my clothes. The moment she signed my name. Now, she wanted to reset the board. Pretend it was all confusion. Poor decisions. Bad timing. But I'd been watching. And the difference between a mistake and a plan is the pattern. That night, she texted again. 3 messages. Back to back. Please talk to me. They're saying I could go to prison. Don't let this happen to me. I turned off my phone. Because at some point, you stop reacting. You stop explaining. You just enforce the boundary. The next morning, Agent Patel called. They had enough on Jeremy and Spencer for federal charges. Conspiracy. Wire fraud. Identity theft. Becky's fate still hung in the balance. Patel said they were considering an offer. Full restitution. Signed confession. Cooperation. In exchange for no prison time. But only if I agreed. I asked for the terms in writing. She sent them. I read them twice. Then called James. Get it in motion, I said. 3 hours later, Becky signed. She forfeited all rights to the house. Waived any claim to my pension. Admitted to forging my signature. Handed over all communication between her and Spencer. No trial. No public spectacle. Just a clean split. On paper. James slid the documents across the table the next day. Final now, he said. Divorce, settlement, everything. I didn't smile. Didn't breathe easier. Just nodded. Because it was never about winning. It was about finishing. That evening, I drove past the house. The for sale sign was gone. Jeremy's truck was impounded. The lights were off. It looked abandoned. like something left behind, like something that had once meant something, but didn't anymore. I didn't stop, just kept driving. Later, alone in the motel, I opened the letter Becky left under my door. The one I hadn't touched. It was short. 4 sentences. Half of it excuses. The other half regret. I folded it once. Dropped it in the trash. Didn't shred it. Didn't burn it. Because some things don't deserve ceremony. They just need to be discarded. Silently. 3 weeks later, I sold the house. Didn't even pack much. Left behind the couch, the bed, the photos on the fridge. Things that used to mean something. A young couple bought it. Military, like me. First deployment coming up. I didn't warn them. Didn't mention what had happened between those walls. Let the place start over. Let them build their own version of home. I moved into a cabin outside Missoula, Montana. 2 bedrooms. 10 acres. A creek out back. Silence thick enough to rebuild a life in. The Army offered me an early retirement package. 20 years was enough. Enough sand. Enough orders. Enough nights wondering if someone was waiting back home or just filling space until someone better came along. I took the package. Bought tools. Started doing carpentry. Nothing fancy, just fences, benches, tables. Work where the results were solid and the lines were straight. The VA check covered the bills. The rest, I earned with my hands. One day, James sent a link. News coverage of the sentencing. Jeremy Ryan, 8 years. Daniel Spencer, 12. They pled out. Gave up names, accounts, the whole network. It had run through 3 states. Targeted over a dozen military families. Wives left alone. Houses flipped. Equity drained. I wasn't the only one. But I was the first who hit back hard enough to break it. That mattered to me. More than I thought it would. A month after the sentencing, I got a letter. Typed. Formal. A woman in Fort Worth. Her husband was Navy. Gone for 6 months when Jeremy showed up. She almost signed her house away. But the FBI stepped in just in time because of my case. She wrote, "You don't know me, but you saved my life. Thank you for not staying quiet." I pinned the letter to my refrigerator. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't post about it. Just stood there and read it again. Then went back to work. Sometimes I still get texts from Becky. They come from different numbers. Short. Random. One said, "I miss our dog." Another, "Do you ever think about what we had?" I don't reply. Because that version of me, the one who trusted blindly, he's not here anymore. She burned that version down. And I rebuilt something better. Quieter. But stronger. Not out of spite. Not for revenge. Just because I could. And that's enough. The days got quieter. No more lawyers. No more agents. No more calls from banks or fraud departments. Just morning light through pine trees and the rhythm of a life that no longer needed defending. I adopted a dog. German Shepherd, 2 years old. Shelter said his name was Scout. Didn't argue. He followed me around the property like we'd known each other years. I built him a kennel, though he never used it. Slept by the door every night. It was the first time in a long time something just stayed. I started getting more carpentry requests. Locals needing fences repaired, porches fixed, gates replaced. Word got around that I showed up early, didn't overcharge, didn't talk much. That seemed to work for people. One afternoon, I was laying new boards on a widow's deck when she asked if I was married. I said was. She nodded like that explained everything. Didn't pry. Another time, a kid from the hardware store asked if I used to be in the military. I said yeah. He said, "Makes sense." Didn't say why. Didn't need to. Some nights, I'd sit on the back porch with Scout beside me and a beer in hand, watching the trees bend in the wind. Not chasing anything. Not hiding, either. Just still. I hadn't been still in years. Not since the long nights in Kandahar. Not since the subtle betrayals started adding up back home. Not since I realized the woman I'd built a life with had already moved on, with a man who used my mug and wore my clothes. And now, all of that felt distant. Not forgiven. Just irrelevant. I'd kept the security footage. Stored away in the cloud, password protected. Not out of vengeance. Just as a reminder. A record. Of how fast someone can smile while pulling the rug from beneath you. Of how little it takes to turn trust into paperwork. A reminder that silence isn't surrender. It's control. It's choosing your battles and ending them on your terms. James checked in from time to time. Said my case was still being studied in fraud prevention circles. Told me I'd made a dent in the system. I said nothing, but I appreciated it. Sometimes justice doesn't look like headlines or apologies. Sometimes it looks like a quiet man with a dog and a tool belt, living exactly how he wants. No alarms, no chaos, no second guessing. Just clean air, solid work, and the knowledge that when the storm came, I didn't scream. I didn't crumble. I just watched and acted when it mattered. 1 year after the divorce papers hit my inbox, I got a letter. Typed envelope. No return address. Inside, just a short note. I never meant for things to end like this. No signature. No apology. Just that single sentence, like a breath of regret too late to matter. I folded it once and tucked it in the back of a drawer. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because some endings don't deserve fire. Just storage. There was no bitterness left. Just awareness of what was taken, what was given, what survived. Scout was asleep by the fireplace that night. Outside, snow fell in sheets. Thick, clean, quiet. James had called that morning. Said the case had officially closed. Said several of the victims had begun rebuilding. One started a nonprofit. Another wrote a book. He asked if I'd want to speak at a conference. Military fraud prevention. I told him I'd think about it. But I knew I wouldn't go. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I'd already said everything I needed to. With evidence. With action. With silence. The cabin had become home in a way that the old house never quite managed. Maybe because there was no one to lie to me here. No one to gut the truth out of a room with a half smile and new passwords. I kept a few things. My mother's silver. My grandfather's watch. A box of deployment letters. They weren't sentimental. They were anchors. Reminders that some things endure. If you protect them. If you don't assume love is enough without loyalty. One morning, I walked out to the creek. Scout padded behind me, head low, ears up. Fresh tracks in the snow. Deer, maybe a fox. I stood there a while, watching water move under ice. The way it slipped through without effort. No resistance. No fight. Just flow. And I realized something. I never needed revenge. Not really. What I needed was what I'd built. A life no one could take from me. A future shaped by my own hands. A quiet peace that didn't come from forgiveness, but from choosing not to carry the wreckage forward. Some men fight loud. Some tear down what betrayed them. And some just wait. Build. Document. Strike once. Then step back and let the dust settle on someone else's ruin. I didn't win by proving her wrong, or by shouting down her story. I won by leaving the fire behind and walking away without looking back. And by the time she realized that silence was my answer, I was already gone. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.